Why are we talking about going sober again? And what value is someone listening right now going to get from sticking around to the end of this episode?
Well, at the start of this year, I set myself a goal to do 6 months sober. I mean, just technically 6 times 1 month sober.
Okay.
So it didn't have to be like
a
total of 6 months sober.
Could that be split into days though?
No.
Okay.
6 times 1 whole month.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
January went really good.
Dry Jan, nice.
Dry Jan. And then February to May, I got back on the booze.
Wet Feb?
Very wet Feb. Like
wet March?
Drenched.
Oh.
Like probably the most drenched I've been in years.
Really?
Like genuinely, it was like heavy. And I realised I just felt a lot shitter.
Sorry to laugh.
No, yeah, thanks. So it got to the end of May and I was like, I had a big night out and I had a terrible hangover and I was like, nope, I'm doing June sober free, alcohol free. And then I just decided that I want to do 6 months sober. And I randomly bumped into you in the gym. Do you remember? I decided it one night because I'd done like 20 days and I was like, I'm going to challenge myself to doing 6 months sober. And I said it to you and you went, I was thinking about that as well. I want to do that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I thought that we could do a podcast. There's so much we've learned. We did an episode quite a while ago about taking breaks from alcohol. We've learned a huge amount since that. And I want to share that with the anchors.
I would say that. We did an episode when we we're kind of starting out in bouts of sobriety and how we were finding it and that sort of thing. And like you said, I guess we both had, since then, times where we've been drinking alcohol and times where we've been sober. And like you said, I think definitely learned a lot. And I think we got some data as well to look into, which I think is going to be quite interesting. Now we've been having these dry and wet periods.
Yeah.
We've actually got some data which I think could be really interesting.
Let me tell you some cold hard data from my Whoop band. We did an episode about fitness trackers.
Yeah.
Our Whoop band is an amazing fitness tracker that gives us data. So you ready for this?
Go for it.
So looking up the data from January to June this year. So my average resting heart rate went from a peak in 59 in February to a low of 53 in June. The average hours of sleep per night I get went from a low of 6 hours 21 in Feb to a high of 7 hours 1 in June. The average sleep performance went from a low of 75% in Feb to a high of 80% in June. The average daily calories burnt went from a low of 2,291 in April to 2,774 in June.
Calories burnt, right?
Calories burnt, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And the average heart rate variability went from a low of 84 in Feb to a high of 106 in June.
So that is, clear changes there, and we'll go into those a bit more. For those that don't know, heart rate variability is something that Whoop tracks, and it's something we might talk about quite a lot in this episode when it comes to the data. So I just want to let you know the kind of definition of heart rate variability. Because actually I went to my doctor and he didn't even know. Later found out he wasn't a doctor. He was just one of those like, don't have enough doctors. So he's like, can you listen to this guy? But heart rate variability is the fluctuation in the time intervals between adjacent heartbeats. Heart rate variability indexes neurocardiac function and is generated by heart-brain interactions and dynamic nonlinear autonomic nervous system processes. So, if you still don't know what that means, basically, if your body's struggling to adapt, in lots of ways, then your heart rate variability is going to be low because it's basically struggling to adapt to different circumstances.
There's the gaps between each of your heartbeats.
Yeah. And it's actually good to have variation between those gaps. But it's very small variation.
And this is what Whoop tracks, like their main data on is this one metric.
Yeah. And if you have if your body isn't struggling, if your body's thriving, then your heart rate variability is likely to be high because your body's able to adapt beat by beat, minute by minute, second by second.
Like you want to go to song.
I'm rapping. And your heart rate variability will be high. And it's an indicator of current and future health, basically. And it's now being used in a lot of health systems around the world. Not the UK yet so much as a something that UK doctors really look at in detail, but a lot of places around the world. And I've actually been, when I got my Whoop band, went into doctors and hospital and things because mine was so low, and I've been working on finding that out. Might speak about that in a bit. Dan's is very high. He's doing good with the old
Yeah.
fitness. Dan's got a good heart rate variability. But yeah, I've had tests and things and been making changes. Mine was as low as like 10
Basically
milliseconds
dying.
heart rate variability at one point.
Yeah.
And yours, what's your kind of average?
My
Where are you
average,
now?
well, in June currently is 106.
Nice.
But it goes up to like 120, 130.
Nice. And I guess first bit of data for anchors out there. So I was averaging at 23 milliseconds when I was when I first got the Whoop ban and when I was drinking and that kind of thing, and it steadily increased to 32 milliseconds over the 4 months until I started drinking more regularly again a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And then it dropped by 12% back to 28 milliseconds. So I'm still I haven't gone backwards to where I was, but I was working really hard and not drinking much, getting it up. And then a couple of months of drinking a bit more, I've seen the data change.
You really notice when you've got a fitness tracker, it could be a Fitbit or a Whoop, whatever, how terrible for your body alcohol is. I'm not going to be preachy because I love drinking, and we've said this before.
Oh, I love it.
Like, we both love drinking.
Can I just make a point about how much I love it?
Go on.
When we did the last episode about sobriety,
Yeah.
because we spoke about drinking so much,
Did you go?
I had loads of beers after we recorded the episode.
Did you?
Even though we were talking about sobriety.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of a thing of like what triggers you into. But yeah, I love it.
Do you know what? For me though, it's got to a point where I've just had enough. Like, I've had enough. I said this to my mate Leandro in the sauna at the gym the other day. Like, I've done all the nights out you can do. Like, I'm now, I've went to uni.
Bragging.
No, I'm not. No, this is not a brag. Like, I'm done it. I've done the big nights out. I've done the small nights out. I've done going to the pub with your mates. I've done going and watching the football. I've done all of that. I'm done with feeling like shit and hangovers. I'm so ready to set a new challenge to see how I feel without drinking for a longer stint than a month. It's been 18 years of me drinking.
I hadn't really thought about it like that, but I can really relate to that. Not that I've done every night out. I don't think I have personally, but I am at a stage where I am thinking like, so I've been drinking since I was 15, and so it's more than half my life now. And now I feel excited, and I feel like my health has gradually been deteriorating over that time. Probably not as much when I was younger because I could handle it and stuff. And I'm now excited about like the next 15, 20 years of my health improving and kind of taking on a bit, like going in a different direction.
I think though, when I was drinking, if I would have heard you say that, I'd think you sound like a bit of a wanker. Like,
I do.
No, because no. Now I'm agreeing with you, and I actually agree.
Don't forget, it's only because you're a wanker.
I'm a wanker as well.
Yeah.
But when I'm drinking a lot, it's so much fun and it's cool, and it's like, and hearing someone else say, "Oh, I'm gonna feel excited to be healthy," I'm like, "Shut up, let's get a beer."
Yeah.
Now though, because I've done all that and I've gone through all that, I'm at a point where I genuinely completely agree with you. I'm like, I want to do 6 months sober and just see how I feel, and already the data that I'm tracking is all showing me, and the way I'm feeling, like on top of just anecdotally, like on top of that data saying good stuff, I feel happier in general. Like, I genuinely do feel happy. We said this before, but like my mood feels less fluctuating from the highs and the lows. Like, I feel like a steady mood. I feel happier. Things like I've started doing park run and running. I hit a PB on my park run the other day. I'm spending more time with my kids at the weekend. I'm not being hungover all day, sitting on the sofa feeling like shit. I'm actually like spending time with them and doing fun stuff with them. I feel less sluggish. I feel more alive. Like, there's all these benefits that you see that I really think that people should try it.
Yeah. I think we're gonna later on in the episode we're gonna talk about some of the kind of business benefits as well. We find and we have found over the last few months, being sort of business owners or leaders in business and that sort of thing. But just going to go into a bit more data and a couple of things that I've been reading recently.
Go ahead.
Listeners, you won't be able to see these graphs, but if you're watching on social, you might be able to see these. So I had a stint of drinking for like a month, and my average recovery, which is something on Whoop that it shows you basically how recovered your body is and ready for whatever it's going to be doing. I was at 70% average when I wasn't drinking. And then I had like a stag do, and I had a few nights out and some beers and stuff. And it went down to 60%. And I like, that sounds like 10% difference. That's not much, but I just noticed such a massive difference in how I was feeling. And also, say heart rate variability, over these months where I was being healthy and not drinking much, so it increased by 4% in month 1 on average, 13% on month 2, 15% in month 3, and then I was kind of getting into some bad habits and drinking a bit more again. It went up 3% the next month, and then it dropped by 12%. This was like last month.
Yeah.
And now it's increasing again. Caning the booze.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was interesting looking at, you can get insights on the Whoop band because you fill out a journal and then you can kind of track different things you're doing, activities.
Yeah.
So it's from small things of like wearing a sleep mask at night or like what time you've eaten dinner. You can track like small things like that, but also big things like I got shit-faced. Like you can track alcohol, and I've got a screenshot for the viewers here, and basically it has a negative impact of minus 18% on my recovery on average if I drink. And it's interesting. I was like, I wonder how many drinks I kind of drink on average, because you'd never track it, would you?
Yeah.
You'd normally be like, oh God, I had loads, or I had 1 or 2. But there were 11 occasions where I had between 1 and 4 drinks.
Okay, lightweight,
and that actually only affected my recovery by 3% on average. But there were 16 occasions where I had between 5 and 12 drinks.
Okay.
That sounds a lot, doesn't it? There was a stag do and a holiday and stuff in there. But on average, that reduced my recovery by 20%. Yeah. And it's just seeing the data. It's quite shocking when you can actually see the cold, hard facts.
So on top of the data, I think anchors listening and watching may relate to this. I want to know, like, why have you decided to challenge yourself to do 6 months sober? Like, other people may be listening thinking, sounds pretty interesting. Yeah. Like, why have you, what's the reasoning? What is it just the cold hard data that shows, or is there?
Well, no, I've also been reading a lot. There's a podcast I've been listening to about health. What's it called? Feel better, live more. Feel good, live more. Who knows?
Is that the one you sent the other day?
Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, or something like that. But he really focuses on, you've got mental health and physical health.
Yep.
Both very important. He focuses a lot on basically the fact that there isn't mental health and physical health, it's just health. And that it's all completely linked. And this discrimination between both, it really, like, the body doesn't know there's a mental health and physical health.
Oh, it just reacts to that.
It's all happening. And it's all affecting each other. Like, we as humans now, it's really good we've recognized mental health, whereas 20 years ago, it's kind of like,
it's having a funny turn.
Get your act together. Yeah. The only reference to mental health 20 years ago was you just would hear, Dave's had a midlife crisis. Like that would be the extent of like talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Or it'd be like, he went crazy. Right. So it's good now that we like speak about mental health, but in reality,
it went crazy.
Within health, there isn't a distinction between both. And he has a lot of guests on that talk about like nutrition, how what you eat and what you drink has a massive effect on what goes in on your brain, goes on in your brain.
Yeah.
Sorry, good podcaster. And I've been reading and listening to a lot of that, and I can really relate to it. And I've started linking it with my own behaviors, and I'm thinking like, actually, we had time recently where we were working really hard on like business strategy and stuff. I was really having to use my brain. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. And I just noticed that I was finding it so much harder than I had done previously.
I was like, are you all right?
And it's because I was in a stint of like, by the way, not saying drinking like most people would think you've got a drinking problem, but like, Thursday I had 4 beers. Friday I had 2 beers. Sunday I had 5. And that kind of routine. And also just my mood in general when I wasn't, my brain's just struggling to do stuff basically.
Do you think it's going to be a struggle to do 6 months? Do you think you're going to do it? Do you think you're going to do 6 months?
I think I'm going to do longer than 6 months.
Oh, okay.
But I also am very cautious in saying that publicly. Didn't sound it just then. Because I know, like, I feel so good. And like I said, I think since drinking, I've gradually felt worse since I was like 15, like health-wise and things. And when I have sober stints, I feel so much better. But I also know that I've felt good like this before, and I still want to have a beer now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you said to me, there's this magic thing, it's not going to have a negative effect on your health now, Lloyd. Do you want this beer? I just say, yeah, shall I down it?
Yeah.
And I think because it's so good and so good at making you want more.
Yeah.
And I've had really good times having drinks in the past. I've loved times drinking with friends and celebrating things and going on holidays and having a drink. Like, I've loved it. I suppose I don't want to be naive.
Yeah.
And because it's easy for us to sit here in the middle of a work day
Yeah.
when we've had like a couple of weeks off drink where it's like, do you know what? I am never going to drink again. And so I guess I don't want to be naive to that, because I know it is going to be a big challenge, I think.
I'm not naive to that, but I've had a switch in my head where like I am doing this 6 months, but I know I'm going to drink after it. Like I can imagine I'm going to drink after it, but I am so when I've set myself a goal and I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I've already agreed I'm booking a holiday at the end of the 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've done all these things that are...
I do think as well, the longer you go alcohol free, I think the stronger the feeling will be, and the more reinforcements you have not to go back to drinking, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I think it may get easier rather than harder. I don't know. And I just think the kind of compounding effects over time alcohol has, I personally think staying sober and the compounding effects of that, like you'll be thinking, I think in 6 months, be thinking, oh my God, the business has grown and we've done so much better at work. Like my relationships are so much better with my family and things like that. Cause I've, over 6 months, there's going to be 20 times where you don't feel groggy and you actually send that text to your auntie or you actually go and see your grandparents because you've got the energy to
weekend.
Go over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, but do you know what I mean? Like over 6 months, the compounding of all those things, I feel might be more motivational and over time. I don't know.
I think the real difficult one's going to be holidays. Like I've never had a holiday not drinking after the age of 13.
We're also going to Ibiza in September for a work thing.
I already know I'm not drinking. I'm going to be the classic like yoga-y retreat person. I think they're doing like yoga and stuff there. Yeah.
So, but I have to say, Dan, surely it's going to be a massive test, right? We're going to be in Ibiza. We're going to be at this event. There's even drinks involved with the event. Yeah. So there's like, oh yeah, there's this networking thing. Oh, there's beers there. Help yourself. Like, don't have to buy anything.
Not going to drink. I'm 100% not going to drink.
I believe in you. I'm just saying, surely that sort of situation is going to be one of the biggest challenges for us.
I've done IB for twice, and I've had the big ones.
So.
Like I said, I've done every night out, mate.
He's done every night out you can do. He's a big boy in Ibiza. He'll go there and they go, oh, Dan's back. Bloody hell.
I'm looking...
and he's going to be like, no, not this time, lads. No.
I'm looking forward to experiencing it, on a different kind of vibe, on a different level.
Yeah. The only hard thing is, obviously, we're going away together. Previously, if you're getting a bit sick of me, you could be like, I'll just get shit-faced and I'll kind of forget that he's annoying. Yeah. Now I'm just going to be there like at 6 a.m. going, you ready for yoga then?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll join you.
And you'll be ready for yoga. Okay.
I want to get into some tips for the anchors, because I reckon some anchors may be listening thinking, hearing the backstory, relating to the similar feelings. You've had enough of feeling shit all the time. You want to challenge yourself to something new. And they're thinking, I want to have a break from alcohol potentially. Can I share 3 things that have been like game changing for me in this last 2 years? I think I've been doing more stints of sobriety that have really helped.
Well, what I'd like you to do, Dan, is share some game changing tips on how people can get sober.
Okay, so
exactly what you said.
So tip number 1 is try and find someone to do a stint of sobriety with. For me, I've got sometimes it's you, Lloyd. Sometimes it's my close friends. But feeling like you've got a sense of someone else is doing this same thing with me. And it's like anything, isn't it? Having a sense that you're on this journey with someone else. I'll give you some examples. So I go to the gym with my friends Dro and Kat. Dro's doing a stint of sobriety.
Can I just say a quick thing, because I think it's really good to know. Yeah. Dan's friend Kat is actually called Oliver. But they call him Kat because he just drinks glasses of milk.
No, there's 3 reasons why we call him Kat.
Oh. Are they all appropriate for the...
Yeah, they're appropriate for the pod. So there's 1, he used to drink milk all the time.
Yeah.
There's 2, he used to have a terrible haircut and look like a dead cat on his head.
Oh.
And 3, he used to just sleep on everyone's sofa, so we called him a stray cat.
I didn't know those ones. I thought it was just drinking the milk. Okay, I'm really happy that me and the anchors all know those 3 reasons. Now into the sobriety tips.
So I go to the gym with my mates, and I'm like, now I'm in this stint of sobriety, I'm always having conversations with Dro and Kat about sobriety and about taking breaks, and it reinforces all the feelings and the reasons for doing it. And sometimes you have those wobbles and you think, oh, if they're all going out for beers, and then they're like, nope, this Friday evening we're going to go in the sauna together and go to the gym. And so definitely find someone to do it with. Secondly, download the I Am Sober app. This is an app. It's a free app we've used in the past. It tracks all your days of sobriety. It's got all these different things you can add into it, so it gives you motivation, and each day you can pledge on it. So I don't do any of that crap. I just look on the calendar to see how many blue days I've got.
You can be like, oh, I'm 18 days in without a drink. I do think it's good just to check in like that. I think for some people, pledging each day would be, and saying, clicking a button saying, no, I'm not going to drink, would be really useful. But I find it so useful just to almost a motivation of going, bloody hell, I've already done 12 days.
Yeah.
Why? I can obviously do a month. I've done 12 days. I've done a month. I can definitely do 2 months.
You can. I did do this. This sounds really cheesy, but you can write like reasons for why you're going sober.
Yeah.
I feel happier. Saving money, and then it comes up with that when you open the app.
Yeah.
And it's like,
do you know what I wrote? And it sounds so, like cheesy. A lot of the things we talk about, when you say it, it sounds so simple. And it's like, why don't we all do this every day? Obviously, life's harder than that. But I wrote in there something.
Life's harder than that.
It says something like, I'm not going to drink because it makes me feel worse and makes me feel sluggish and rubbish. And it's like, when you write that, you think, why am I doing it like this? But like I said, life's harder than that.
Another scary thing I did on it, something else you can do on the free version as well, is you can put how much money you save. You basically look on an average on a week, how much, or a day, how much you spend on alcohol. I'm not going to give all the details away, but I went through my bank account and looked at all the transactions from pubs, and it was a horrible amount of money. And I now have put that into it, and I can see how much I've saved on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah.
And I'm going to save a lot over these 6 months, put it that way.
The one good thing about my drinking is I've just been drinking like cans of beer in my garden.
Alone.
When you told me how much you spent in pubs, it's like, bloody hell, he's got a good social life, but that is expensive.
Yeah. So definitely download the I'm Sober app as tip number 2. Tip number 3, I want you to buy a book called Sober on a Drunk Planet. It's a book that I've been reading for the last few weeks, and I finished it now. But it tells a story of a guy called Sean who was in the corporate world and talks about drinking loads and how his life sort of went into turmoil and how he turned it around. And it gives you all of this very highly relatable reasoning and things that you can benefit from not drinking. And I read it, and what it did for me was it just kept like the community thing of talking to friends about what they're doing it as well and why you're doing it. It reinforced all the reasons why I was doing it, how I had less hangovers and feel better and spend more time with my kids and save money.
It is interesting you say about like reinforcing all that stuff. I think because we've obviously recorded episodes on sobriety, I'm reading more about it and stuff like that. I now like the algorithms of social media platforms and stuff like, oh, this guy likes sobriety. And I'm seeing more like content on like Instagram and TikTok and things of like people who have been sober for like 2 years and talking about the benefits and stuff. And I think the more you surround yourself, I suppose, with like people and things and messaging around why you're doing it, it's a constant reinforcing.
Exactly.
And
one of the
message.
Getting that reinforcement, like you say, is really important. One of the biggest relatable like light bulb moments for me reading in this book was he talks about the positive and negative butterfly effect of drinking. So he paints this picture of like, right, you go out on a big night out, the next day you feel awful, you're in bed all day, you eat crap food, so it's crap for your health. You spend money on takeaway, so it's not good for your money. You don't spend time with your kids or do productive things. You don't do any training or anything. And then you go into Monday feeling a bit shitter. You're less effective at work. You don't, close that deal or achieve that thing that you're going to achieve in that week. Do that every week for a period of years. That butterfly negative effect is going to have a big shit impact on your life, and it's highly relatable. But then he talks about the positive butterfly effect of not drinking. So you're having a break from drinking. So you don't drink, you don't have a big night out. You go to bed early, you have a decent amount of sleep, you feel fresh in the morning, you go to the gym early, you get up early, you spend time with your kids, your family, you go into Monday feeling great, you close that deal, you achieve that thing at work. You go up the career ladder quicker because you're not feeling shit in the week. You're doing everything as effectively as you can. Over a period of years of not doing that, you're going to achieve a lot more, feel a lot better, feel a lot happier. Like it was such a relatable thing. Like, yes, I've experienced all those butterfly shit effects. Now I can start to experience the positive butterfly effects of having breaks from alcohol.
Do you know what those like positive effects and things, it made me think of a time. So this was probably about 2017, 2018, where we went to an awards ceremony in Birmingham, I think, and we were sat next to Harry Hugo, who is one of the founders of the GOAT agency. It's been acquired now, I think, by one of the biggest sort of marketing corporations in the world. He's had a very successful career at a very young age. He's younger than us. And I remember being there and we were like there ready to have like a night out because it was, a meal and like drinks and dancing and stuff at this awards thing. And I found out there that I don't think he was completely sober at that point, but like kind of just said, "Oh no, I don't really drink." And I remember, to me, I was
weirdo
at that point. I thought, "Oh, weird." And I remember asking him, like, "Oh, why is it you don't drink?" Because like I find a lot of people ask me when I have stints of sobriety. It's like people question you, like you're doing something weird, like why don't you? And I did the same. I was like, "Why don't you drink?
Are you all right?"
And he was just very matter of fact, kind of like, "Oh, I just find like there's a lot of things I'm doing with the business and like want to do and achieve and stuff, and it just like it makes it all a lot harder if I drink." And at the time, I remember like
I'm not there doing a shot.
I've literally remembered this conversation from like 5 years ago when one of the first times we met Harry, and I remember it stuck with me because I thought like, God, yeah, that makes complete sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and it is that thing, like if you want to achieve like really great things, alcohol is something that's going to be a bit of a barrier to that, like you said, because of these positive and negative butterfly effects.
I think you said that before. It just makes it more difficult to achieve your goals.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, why put barriers in the way?
I think, like, so I go to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Friday mornings are my standard days, and then sometimes on Wednesdays. If I have a drink on Sunday, even one drink, I reckon my chance of going to the gym on Monday
decreases
is probably about 30% or lower.
Yeah.
And if I don't have a drink on Mondays, I say I go 95% of the time. And like you're saying,
compound that over years.
Exactly. Like say I burn 150 calories and build some muscle each time I go. If I don't do that 20 times this year, that's going to have a big effect.
Yeah. So I've shared some of my kind of 3 key tips for anchors listening who are looking to try this. I want to hear some tips from you, Lloyd. For the anchors, what advice have you got for them if they're looking to do a stint of sobriety or even just do a month off, or what advice have you got?
My first one is plan what you're going to do to make you feel good instead of drinking in advance. Because I've found, especially if you've got friends or family drinking around you and things, and like having a good time drinking and you're deciding not to, I think it's much more tempting to be like, oh, what? They're having a really good time. And I feel like I'm missing out on something. And to me, that's a key trigger of like, well, I'm just going to drink then. And I think now I have things where I'm like, again, because you said about the saving money and like you've got time because you're not in bed hungover and you've got energy. So now I have things like organizing, I'll be like, actually this weekend, something I've done is I've said to my wife, like, oh, Saturday morning, I'm going to get out early. This might not sound like a treat to people, but I'm going to the gym and doing my whole sauna and swimming in the outdoor pool and stuff like that Saturday morning. And in my head now, it's like, oh, well, I don't need a drink like Friday night or anything or Saturday. Like I'm doing that. I'm going to have like 2 hours just for myself doing something that I really like. And that's made me not miss it, even if I'm with people on Friday that are drinking. And I think also if you're in a habit of like, I go to the pub every Saturday night. I think in advance, let's plan something good for Saturday night. Like, I'm going to go to the cinema. Yeah, exactly. Like, I can afford to take my husband out for a 3-course meal because I'm not spending 60 quid on tequilas. And plan something decent. I think that makes it much easier because you don't feel like you're missing out. You feel like you're just doing different good stuff.
Yeah. I've definitely, that made me think of my thing with that is, I was mentioning the other day, like upgrading my gym to one that's got a pool and sauna and steam room and that, because now I will spend some evenings on the weekend doing that because that's my little treat.
Yeah.
Interesting. What else? What other things?
Secondly, it's quite similar, but it's like finding people to start new habits with. So I had people in my life that I used to meet, go to the pub, and now with those same people and some new people, I have different habits. So like I've been meeting my friend Ash on a Thursday evening for a bike ride. Makes me sound well boring. But like that's now a habit I'm in that I enjoy, and that's basically replaced the old habit I had. I'm still seeing friends and socializing, and again it makes it much easier introducing those new habits of like, because you don't feel like you're missing out on something. You're in a routine and a habit where you're doing stuff you enjoy without alcohol.
I don't know if it's the not drinking or the getting older, but you do start to enjoy and get joy from more mundane activities. I found
Mundane activities.
Well, that you traditionally would be like, oh, that sounds boring. You actually start to enjoy that. But
my final tip,
go on.
I think that I found useful and something that's kind of tripped me up, I think, when I've wanted to have stints of sobriety in the past, is identifying your triggers and what you plan to do when you are triggered by these things. So for a lot of people, the sun coming out is a trigger to drink alcohol. I know that I've spoken to Dro, our friend, about this, and I felt that myself. Like the sun's out, and I like even in my positive habit, I cycle past a beer garden, and I'm like, I should probably do that because the sun's out. So identifying those kind of triggers and thinking in advance as well, like, oh, what should I like when it's sunny? What am I going to do to make myself not? And again, could be mundane stuff like I'm going to make really nice smoothies and drink them instead of pints of cider. Or like, oh, when it's nice weather and the sun's out, I'm going to start doing swims in the sea. And then each time you do that, you're going to feel great when you do it rather than, oh, I've had 8 pints. I think a lot of time people are in habits and have triggers as well. It's just their normal routine. Like you, maybe every Sunday you go to the pub, like you have a pub lunch and then have 6 beers or 4 gin and tonics or whatever it is. And I think kind of thinking in advance, oh shit, yeah, like I do this every week, and every week that's my trigger to like have those drinks and stuff. And I think it's identifying that and being like, okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm actually not going to have lunch at the pub. I'm going to buy like all these amazing ingredients from the farmer's market because I can afford it because I'm not buying 8 Guinnesses, and make a really nice lunch at home and get into a different habit and avoid that trigger.
I want to finish with a bit of a quick fire, Lloyd, just to talk from more of a kind of business perspective, thinking about if there's founders, marketers or people within business that are considering doing this, a final thing of just some reasons around why they would consider this. Because they've kind of heard all about our story, our tips and stuff. So yeah, why should like people within business consider taking a break from alcohol? What can they benefit from doing that? So
quickly, your relationships with people within business are going to improve because you're actually going to have the brain fog's going to be gone. You're going to have the energy to send that extra text to say thank you to someone you're working with, to have that extra meeting where you think if you've had a drink the night before, you think, oh, I can't be asked to do that, but you're going to take 15 minutes to discuss things with your co-workers and that kind of thing. So those relationships are going to improve. Productivity, I honestly think my days when I'm in sober stints feel more like 10 hours than a standard like 7 or 8 hour working day. So you're going to get much more done. And again, that butterfly effect of that is going to be massive over the next year. A final thing I think you're going to experience, which I have, is stress and anxiety are going to massively decrease even in exactly the same situation you were before. This is one of the biggest things I've found is nothing's changed within the business. So I might be in exactly the same situation I was last week, dealing with the same thing, but I feel much less stressed and anxious about it.
The outcome is better.
And the outcome's better. And I think it's just because you can deal with it. You're physically able to deal with it.
I think yours are very aligned with mine. My 3 were, you work more efficiently and effectively, feeling less stressed, like you said. And the final one for me is I actually enjoy work more. I don't feel like, oh, I can't wait for it to get 5 o'clock when I can go home. I'm like, I want to work more because I'm enjoying this. So it's definitely, I really recommend people just considering having some kind of sobriety stint, even if it's just doing a month or.
Yeah. I
it's
really
worthwhile.
hope this hasn't sounded preachy or anything, because just so you know, Anchors, as we said, me and Dan love a drink and have been drinking quite a lot lately. And so there's no judgment or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's
you're just not as good as us.
Yeah, obviously. But outside of that, there's no judgment. But we're having such good experiences when we do have breaks from alcohol.
Give it a go.
And
just
so,
try it.
want to spread the word. Yeah. And that butterfly effect, like if you think you're listening to this now, in a year's time, maybe your business has grown massively and you've lost a stone in weight and you've been trying to do that for years.
Yeah.
That's what an outcome that would be.
I've got 2 final actions for you all to do before you listen to the next episode.
Open a can of beer.
No. 1, if this has inspired you to take a break from alcohol, let us know. Because the previous episode we did quite a while ago, lots of people got in touch saying, it inspired me to take a break. So do that and let us know and we can talk about it and stuff.
Yeah.
And secondly, leave us a review right now.
Yeah. Both those things would be great.
Okay. So just do those things right now. We'll just wait here until you've done them. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Done then. Right. Let's have a beer to celebrate.
Cool.
Thanks for the review.
We'll see you in your
Beers next week in your beers.
Whee.
No, there won't be any.